You guys gonna guys make sure my camera's AK Snap in today's video we got the NFL's craziest one game wonder. Before this video starts, please like, subscribe, share, man. We're on the 100 subscribers, man. Let's get it.
16th, 2014, Jonas Gray, a running back that almost nobody had ever heard of, exploded for 201 yards and 4 touchdowns on Sunday Night Football. The absurd part was he had never scored an
Yeah, he went for 201 yards plus 4 touchdowns. That's a good game right there.
NFL touchdown prior to that game taking place. It was unlike anything the NFL had seen in nearly 100 years. Jonas Gray was featured on Sports Illustrated the following week, and it appeared we had the emergence of a star right in front of our eyes. But as fast as he rose to the top of every fantasy league's waiver wire, Jonas Gray seemingly disappeared. Following that game, he only made one more start in his entire NFL career. One may ask, how is this even possible? How could a guy play that well and then vanish like that? Well, this may be the craziest part. A phone charger may be to blame for his football career's demise. But before we dive into that...
A phone charger? What the fuck do you mean by phone charger? What? SeatGeek? Yeah, sorry, we ain't sponsored by SeatGeek. So he's going.
Okay, to get the full scope into this story, let me quickly give you the background on Jonas Gray prior to his legendary Sunday night performance. In 2011, Jonas Gray was in the midst of a breakout season at Notre Dame, but in devastating fashion, he tore his ACL, LCL, and MCL, basically every CL in his knee, on the same play versus Boston College. This brutal injury threw his chances of being drafted out the window, and here's how his next 2 years played out. He signed as an undrafted free agent with Miami, and he was placed on the PUP list while rehabbing his knee. In the 16 months that he spent there before getting cut, he was never activated to the 53-man roster. A few days later, Gray signed with the Ravens practice squad for the 2013 season. Again, he was never activated. Then in January 2014, the Patriots picked up Gray, and he would eventually land on their practice squad for the beginning of the 2014 season. As a practice squad player, you usually only get called up to the active roster due to an injury. And in 2014, running back Stevan Ridley got hurt, and Jonas Gray got his first opportunity to suit up in the NFL. And fortunately for him, he actually got game reps, posting 3 carries for 12 yards.
Just off the practice squad.
I just don't know how you have one game one day and then you start. This video seems much. I just don't know how you have one game wonder and then you just vanish. You feel me?
It's at 4 o'clock this afternoon. Jonas Gray.
Gray would see his workload increase over the following 2 games, which included a solid performance versus the Bears, where he averaged over 5 yards a carry. Belichick liked what he had seen from Jonas Gray. As a power back with a relatively fresh body, Patriots coaching staff devised a unique game plan for the following game. According to the sports article, Bill Belichick and offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels prepared for their next game against the Colts the next Sunday, and knowing Indianapolis run stuffer Arthur Jones would be out due to injury, they decided to exploit that weakened area. Essentially, the Patriots went old school, giving the ball to Jonas Gray on more than half of their offensive snaps.
Go figure, out of all the stars that we talked about coming into this game, that Jonas Gray would be the dominant force.
It's not often that you see a modern day running back put up over 30 carries, and Gray had 37 that night. Since 2010, there's only been 4
Le'Veon Bell 2016, Adrian Peterson 2017.
games to feature a player that had that many carries in one game, all of whom, except Gray, were proven backs. Now, this next part is where the story really gets wild. Literally the next week, it was reported that Jonas Gray was sent home by Bill Belichick after not showing up for Friday's practice. Out of all the coaches in the NFL, this is the last guy you'd want to test.
How did he get sent home to practice? He's
disciplined players of all caliber, including future Hall of Famers Randy Moss and Darrelle Revis.
Wait, so Bill Belichick sends people home if they're late to practice or don't show up?
So what was the punishment that preceded for Jonas Gray? Well, in the game following his legendary performance, he didn't play a single snap. That same week that Gray was...
Shit. You go from week 10 Ooh. Go from week 10 doing 201 yards, 4 TDs as a running back. From week 11 to 0 snaps. From maybe missing a practice or not showing up. It's crazy.
Disciplined, the Patriots picked up a running back they had been familiar with in the past, LeGarrette Blount. Blount had played for them in 2013 before moving on to the Steelers in free agency. Eventually, this led him to being released mid-season after voicing frustrations with his lack of carries. This was basically the beginning of the end of Jonas Gray's time as the Patriots' main ball carrier. Blount started getting the ball more, and Gray only received an average of just over 3 carries a game for the rest of the regular season. Blount would shine in the playoffs, and in the Super Bowl, Jonas Gray was inactive and never played another snap.
So he didn't give him another chance. If he did 201 yards plus averaging 4 touchdowns, you gotta what?
For them after the 2014 season. Now, going back to that whole practice incident, what exactly happened? From that Yahoo article I mentioned earlier, quote, on Thursday night, he was up late watching film on his iPad and phone, set his alarm to make sure he'd be on time for the 7:30 a.m. meeting he had on Friday, plugged the phone into its wall charger, and went to sleep. He didn't notice that the charger wasn't plugged into the wall properly. The phone died overnight. His alarm never went off, and Gray didn't wake up until 8:30 a.m., an hour after the meeting started at the team facility.
Damn.
Kevin Anderson, the team's football operations manager at the time, texted and went to Gray's house, but told him not to go to the facility until he called. Gray went in around 5:30 p.m., wanting to explain to Belichick. The coach was walking on a treadmill and reading notes, and Gray recalls he said little other than, "We just can't have it," repeatedly. Man, I can only imagine the fear this man had.
No, that must suck. That must suck. You put your phone charger and then you realize it wasn't in the wall properly and your phone dies overnight and the alarm. That's what you gotta make sure you have an extra alarm, like one of my alarm clocks or something like that. You gotta make sure you have your alarm clock so you won't forget. You feel me?
When he approached Belichick that day, we've all heard how cold and cutthroat he is. I'm sure that response that he received sent shivers down his spine. Prior to the 2015 season, Jonas Gray was cut from the team once and for all. A cap to a truly stunning rise and fall. All because he didn't properly plug in his phone. But was that the actual reason that things fell apart? I mean, these things do happen occasionally, and not every player finds themselves without an NFL job because of it. So let's investigate a little bit further. For my research, Jonas Gray's career night and his demise can be boiled down to the same thing: timing. Let me explain. First off, the running back may be the most plug-and-play position in the NFL, at least offensively. What I mean by this is you don't need to know much of a team's playbook to get game reps and just have the quarterback tell you where to go. I'm not saying it's easy to be an NFL running back, just the most possible to join a team with no knowledge of what they run and be able to play. When Jonas Gray was picked up by the Patriots at the beginning of 2014, that was the best case scenario for a player when it comes to a team maximizing a player's ability, and along with the fact that their main ball.
There's probably a reason why, but I feel like if you missed the practice trying to explain, but you said a 5:30 though, I feel like they should have given another chance. Like 201 yards plus 4 TDs against the Colts, 2014. Come on now, bro.
Carrier went down with an injury. It's literally a practice squad player's most likely journey to getting game reps. Then, looking at that Colts game specifically, the Patriots had done the exact same thing to them in the previous year's playoffs, where their running backs combined for 43 carries, 235 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Crazy enough, they would do this again to the Colts in the following year's playoffs, where LeGarrette Blount put up another monster stat line. When you compare these 3 Patriots games versus the Colts across that year or so.
Yeah, but Jones had it better though. 201 yards, 4 TDs.
It makes you realize that it's more likely about the schemes, coaching, and the offensive line than who's carrying the ball. Even going back to that game by Jonas Gray, Many of his runs were through gaping holes that any NFL caliber player would have exploited. Essentially, the timing of Gray getting just his second career start couldn't have been much better. But the moment that the Steelers released LeGarrette Blount couldn't have been any worse for Jonas Gray. And the fact that it happened just days after Jonas Gray's performance is a wild coincidence. Blount was a guy that Belichick clearly liked from the previous year, but didn't keep him around due to Blount's desire for more money and more carries elsewhere. After his abrupt release mid-season from the Steelers, the Patriots were able to bring him back at a discount. And the thing was, Gray and Blount had similar skill sets as power backs, but Blount was much larger and overall more talented. The coaches clearly favored him going into 2015, when they released Gray before the regular
That's the thing. These coaches be having favorites. It's crazy.
season. Lastly, after the Patriots cut ties with Gray in 2015, he struggled to prove himself once again in Miami and Jacksonville. About half of the next season, he was on the practice squad, and in the 8 total games that he was active, he averaged less than 4 yards a carry. Then, he never played in the NFL again.
Where's he at now?
Now, even though what followed that 200-yard, 4-touchdown performance
I wonder where he's at now.
seems to be disappointing, the reality is, most undrafted free agents and practice squad players never realize their dream of playing in an NFL game. And for the few who do, many of those get very few opportunities before never getting another chance. So the fact that Gray not only got his opportunity, but made the most of it is truly inspiring. He's currently 3rd all-time in Patriots history for single-game rushing yards, and he also led a Super Bowl winning team in season rushing yards. That's something he will always be able to hang his hat on.
He'll run the football. It'll be Jonas Gray, and he's going to run and run some more.
He was fast.
Gray on his horse. Touchdown, New England Patriots. How about that? 55 yards from Jonas Gray, and the Patriots take the lead.
That must suck though, man. That has to suck though. It's crazy. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed that. See you guys in 10 minutes.